myself. I'm Stanzan Ladul, a volunteer at Tibet House, and I will be moderating this session, which is on 8 Four Noble Paths in Sanskrit and Buddhist tradition, textual sources and practice. I would like to welcome our respected chairperson for the session, Professor L.P. Singh, Professor of Philosophy, Magad University, Bodh Gaya, and esteemed speakers, Venerable Geshe Tenzin Damchala, and Professor Shrikant Bhalkarji to kindly take their respective seats on dais. Please welcome our speakers, everyone. Without further ado, now may I request Professor L.P. Singh ji to kindly proceed the session.
Remark, or I will not talk anything about Buddhism. Here there are greater scholar and thinker of Buddhism than myself, so I have come to learn something from all of you. So the Venerable Geshe Tenzin Damcho is the first speaker. Venerable Geshe Tenzin Damcho first attended lower TCV school, then TCV Vyakalpu Commerce. He did his Bachelor of Commerce from St. Philomena's College of Mysore University. He then joined the Institute of Buddhist Dialectic School, where he studied Buddhist philosophy for 16 years. My God. And was awarded and he was awarded Geshe degree from Drepung Losling Monastery of South India. He was a visiting scholar at Oriental Institute, University of Oxford, and Earlham College of USA. At present, he is working at Sarah College for Higher Tibetan Studies in Dharamsala as a coordinator to the foreign colleges and lecturer of Buddhist philosophy and practice. He is also teaching Buddhist philosophy and practice to the Earlham College students of USA and Tibet Fund students. For Immeasurable and Eightfold Noble Path, THERAVADA and Mahayana-Series. He also teaches at Oxford University of England and at Oriental Institute as a visiting scholar. So from his introduction, you know that he is one of the great scholar, a thinker, and practitioner of Buddhism. Now I request Venerable Geshe to present his paper.
Tashidile Kagi Tuzi Nisumbe Tawat and Jipabichi Tambichun Tenjabe Kodam de la Chatselo. I would like to pay respect to Venerable Sangha members, Chairperson Mr. L.P. Singh, and my colleague, respondent Professor Shrikant Bahulkar. First of all, I would like to pray gratitude, and I'm grateful and thankful to the Geshe Tujit Abdullah and the Tibet House staffs for having me over here, and also organizing such conferences. For me, like in Oxford, I spent almost 1.5 months with the Theravada Buddhist monks over there. And also, in the beginning, I always used to think, let's say, there's a slight differences. But in the morning, when they do the recitation, I also join with them. And while having a meal, I also join with them. Then I came to surprise, there are lots of similar recitations. Let's say, like the Lama Gyalsho, Sangil Gyalsho, Chola Gyalsho, Gendula Gyalsho, Buddham Shanam Gachami, Dhammam Shanam Gachami, Sangam Shanam Gachami, like that. And also during the meals, when we do the offerings, what do we recite is Tilbalame Sangye Rumbuche, Kyobalame, Thamje Rumbuche, Dembalame, Gende Rumbuche, Kyamne, Kunjo Sumla Chopa, like that. And for them, what they do is Bhavatusa, Bhamangalam, Rakhantusa, Badevata, Sabba Buddha, Nubhavena, Sadasoti, Bhavantute, like that. So I found wow, there's lots of similarities, right? Then I learned some of the Pali recitations. So it found very interesting. And then from that time onwards, I keep on having a discussion, keep on touching with some of the Pali Buddhist masters, so the Theravada Buddhist practitioners. So it was always a great pleasure to keep in touch with them. Now, for my talk on the Eightfold Path, so since from the morning, most of the speakers, they have covered what I want to talk. So I don't know, what should I share? It might become repetitive. So please bear with me. So as for me, I just thought of discussing on this topics, transformation of Siddhartha to Lord Buddha sharing what he discovered, Eightfold Path, and what are the Eightfold Paths, and how Eightfold Paths can be divided into 3 high trainings, and the debrief. So the Siddhartha, let's say from the Mahayana, or let's say from the Sanskrit, the practitioner's point of view, what we believe is from the very beginning, he has attained enlightenment and he just came over on this earth to show a path, and what all what all his life experiences was summarized or concluded in the 12 deeds. That's what we believe. And the Siddhartha first, as a common people, learned all the war tactics and all these things, and also the married, and also they had a child, and later on, he renounced the worldly life and became a monk, and during his period, he became a kind of a unique. Why? Because all the people, let's say all the practitioners, the pathfinders, they were talking about the solutions, but he's the only one who went to look for the causes, the real causes, the deep root. So then, the departing from his 2 masters and in search of the real cause of the suffering, then as this morning the Geshe-la and also some of the speakers, they have mentioned that he has not invented, he has discovered, right? Everything is within him. So that's why I just try to show the picture of a Buddha with the Eightfold Path on his image. It's more of the compassion, kindness, and happiness. The people, they try to go and look for somewhere else, but in reality, the happiness is within us. It's a kind of a beggar thinking that, oh, I'm so poor. But he doesn't realize, but he doesn't know that there is a big treasure beneath his house. And once he discovered it, what he will feel is, oh, I'm so rich, right? Like the same way, the happiness, compassion, kindness, it's already within us, right? What we need is, we need to spend some time and we need to discover it. And after discovering the Buddha, the Siddhartha, discovering all these things, he attained enlightenment and he became the Buddha. So once he attained enlightenment, what he thought was the profound and peaceful, free from complexity, uncompounded luminosity. I have found a nectar like Dharma, yet if I were to teach it, no one would understand, so I shall remain silent here in the forest. So now these days in Dharamsala too, like let's say over there at the Dharamkot, they have got like lots of yoga centers and all these things. It's more like a bogus, right? So, oh, we will give you like this package, that package. So like now these days, the people, they in one of the Facebook, like they are three days of practices will give you happiness. So I was wondering, right? So how it could be like the Buddha that he found, like he doesn't know like to whom he has to share. Sometimes like we get excited, right? Oh, like what is it? The scientists who found the bones, like, Eureka! We went with the naked, running naked in the city, like. So over here, like Buddha thinking, oh, to whom should I share? Is there anyone like who will understand what my teachings, right? So over here, then after thinking all these things, what we believe is the devas, they came down and asked him, like request him, like, can you just share the teachings that what you have found? Then he shared with the 2 merchants and also with the 5 companions, right? So first he thought like the things that he found that he will share with his teachers, but with the clairvoyance he came to realize that his teachers have passed away. Now the Buddha's teaching can have different perceptions. Some call it a path to enlightenment, some call it a law of nature, some call it a science of mind, right? So it depends upon how you perceive it, like how you want to take it from his teachings. So today, if you want to, like, let's say, discuss on the path to enlightenment. So in the praise of the dependent origination by the Lama Tsongkhapa, like though the Buddha has lots of deeds, but the virtues or like the greatest deeds, that's what he's found was like his speech, right? The things that he has found that he shared to the others. Yes, and also with the Four Noble Truths. Then he taught the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path to the enlightenment. So the Eightfold Paths. So these are some of the sources that which is founded in the sutras, and also with the Nagarjuna's. Why? Because I'm just skipping it, all these things. Why? Because like it becomes a repetitive, like this morning everyone has shown it. So over here, the ornament of the clear realization. So the Maitreya has the topics that he has covered. So over here, so in the ornament of the clear realization, he has talked about the 37 limbs, or like 37 auxiliaries to the enlightenment. This morning, Venerable Puja, Dr. Puja has mentioned about it. So I won't repeat it again. And also Nagarjuna's letter. So the wrong is a wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Right is a right, even if no one is doing it. So during the Buddha's period, so when he talked about the Four Noble Truth, when he talked the truth of suffering, And some of the non-Buddhist masters, like, they have accused him by saying, like, oh, you are making everyone so sad. Why? Because, and also, right from the very beginning, you are talking about the suffering. And the Buddha said, it's a fact. And there's some solution to come out of it. So that's why I'm talking about the suffering first. It doesn't depend upon whether it will make someone happy or unhappy. So this is a fact. So right is a right, even if no one is doing it. So you might have visited the Tibetan temples. So on the Tibetan temples, you will see the deer and the prayer wheel over there. And so the middle one, the 1, 2, 3, it represents of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. And the spokes, the 8 spokes, like it's an eightfold path. So why it is called noble path? These 8 factors which occur during the path of meditation are called the 8 limbs of the path because they are components and elements of the Arya path. The noble eightfold path are proposed by the Buddha helps to attain liberation and enlightenment. So the right view over here, when we talk about the right view is a wisdom which makes through the examination of the object realized in the path of saying during the meditation or meditation analyzing on. So only during the path of saying, then what you attain is the Arya. So when we talk about over here, during the meditation session, one needs to think about the dependent origination, externalism and nihilism to truth, conventional truth, and the ultimate truth. So the focusing, then during let's say, so as I've told you, the path of saying, once you realize and once you see develop the path of saying, then you will call this the Arya. Then at the right thought, so it's only the Buddha during the right view, it's only the Buddha during the meditation session, he can teach and he can preach. But as for the non-Buddhas, who are not the Buddha, the Aryas and the others, so during the post-meditation, so what they have taught has come and trying to share with the others. So it's only the Buddha, like as I've told you earlier, it's only during the meditation period, it's only the Buddha. But as for the others, now over here, like the Buddha, not only keeping for oneself and sharing with others, right? So otherwise, the Buddha, if he haven't shared like what he has found, we won't understand how he realized and how he became the Buddha. So that's make the Buddha special from the others. So as for him, not only during the post-meditation, like during the meditation too, like he can teach. So the right thought, it's having an idea of sharing what they have found and what they have taught. Now with the right speech, through a dialogue, bring others to the realization that one's morality is absolutely pure. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. So what you think, so having a good thought of sharing with the others, then automatically action comes out. And with sharing with the others that you have thought about it, right? And over here, dear fellow Sanghas, don't follow me ignorantly and blindly, like the goldsmith, melt the gold and tear the gold, analyze on my teaching and practice it. Like the same way, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whenever he gives the teaching, he never says like, oh, consider me as your root guru, right? His Holiness the Dalai Lama always tells like, analyze, always analyze, and the things that I have taught you. And also, right after the teaching, there's a Q&A session. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama and also tells us, don't be hurry to choose the masters. So in the Buddhist text, it says like, to choose one's master, test him for 12 years. And the master, and also it's the duty of the role of a master to choose the disciple, test him for 12 years, right? So regarding the Lama Tsongkhapa and Getsabje and Khedubje, so first of all, they went down, like they don't consider him as a master, they went down to him as a challenger, right? After listening, right, through the speech, after listening, then understanding, then realizing, then choose the master. So over here, when it comes to the right speech, it becomes in the Tibetan, especially with the teachings, what we call is the oral transmission. We consider it's a very important. So what we call is a unbroken lineage. Master passing it to the disciple, and disciple becoming a master, and also passing away to the another disciple. So over here, the Buddha in the main, then the Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Gelug. So all these are the great masters passing from one to another. And over here, some of the people, what do they think is that Tibetan Buddhism is Lama is made by the Tibetan, but in reality it's not like that. So the Tibetan kings, they are very selective. So as for the King Tizon Gyaltsen, he invited the Indian Buddhist masters and the Chinese Buddhist masters, and he listened and he led them to debate, and he chose the Indian Buddhism, right? So straight away, without blind faith, he didn't adopt. First, he let them speech, like whether the drum makes a good sound or not, you will understand by beating the drums, right? Not by looking on it. So first he let them speak. Then he understood. Then he adopted the Indian Buddhism. So over here, you see the reincarnated lamas, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama on the left side, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the previous Panchen Lama, and previous His Holiness senior tutor, junior tutor, like that. Then over here on the right, you see now the reincarnated lamas. First, His Holiness the Dalai Lama listened from them. Now he is passing to the new reincarnated lamas. So over here, from the Nyingma tradition, the Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, you see the picture of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche learning from him through the speech, right? Then in the next, over here, in the right, you see the young Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, his reincarnation. Then over here, the same thing with His Holiness senior tutor and the junior tutor, Ling Rinpoche and Tija Rinpoche, and now the reincarnated Ling Rinpoche. Now, next, actually it's a kind of like a taboo not to talk on the passing away of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Sorry. And if His Holiness the Dalai Lama passed away, and when he comes back, now these lamas, like they will be the responsible to give him back, to like the oral teachings, the transmissions that he has like got from. So the Karmapa, the previous Karmapa and the present Karmapa. So now over here with the right action or the activity is the physical and the verbal expression of one has eschewed the wrongdoing. And over here we talk about the 10 non-virtues and the speech and the verbal. So over here, when it comes about the right action, here, do not commit any unwholesome actions. Accumulate virtues as much as you can. Tame your untamed mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So over here, daily basis on the speech and the body, the 10 non-virtues, like the 3 from the the 3 from the body and 4 from the verbal. So with the right livelihood, like from the very young age, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he has become the monk at the age of 4, right? Now he's the next month we are going to celebrate 87th birthday. And my teacher, he became the monk at the age of 5 and he passed away at the age of 83, right? All for his life, like for the livelihood, like keeping the precepts in his mind, right? Now it's not only for the monks and nuns, like the earlier session too, like we have talked about the lay community too. So over here, the Marble Lord Zava, he's married. And also he has a child, but he is considered as the enlightened one. And also the Milarepa, the famous yogi that Tibet has ever produced, right? So it's not only the monks and nuns, even the lay communities too, they can do it. So some of my friends, they used to tell me like, I'm like a monk, but I'm not a monk. So I just got confused, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like a monk, but I'm not a monk. Oh, I don't go to pubs, I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I don't do bad things. That's how we describe him as a monk, but not a real monk. So, yes. So, if you are able to tame your untamed mind and live a livelihood, right? Like the Gandhiji always says, think globally, act locally, right? So sometimes it's very strange. What do we say is, oh, this Geshe, what I heard was like, he's such a learned, but as a person, he's very aggressive. So not only with the Geshe, it's like lots of us, right? Oh, he talks about lots of things, compassion, kindness, but as an individual, he's a very short-tempered person, right? So it becomes a kind of like hypocritic. So what you say and and you don't practice to put in it, it's kind of like a alcoholic father telling his son, son, don't drink it, it's too bad. First the son, he wouldn't be able to have a guts to tell to his father, first he should stop, like that. So, like Ajahn Mun from the Theravada tradition, from Thailand, he's considered as a very revered, and also like considered as a bodhisattva, right? So the livelihood, so whatever you say and whatever you teach and trying to put into practice, right? So like with the physical or with the verbal too. Then with the right effort. So with the right effort, the Buddha tame your mind, which is untamed, right? And right exertion or effort purifies the mental action obstructions. It acts as an antidote for the path of meditation. Practice makes perfect, and no pain, no gain. So over here, let's say from the corporate world, their happiness is gross domestic product, right? And the spiritual practitioners, part of their happiness is gross domestic happiness, right? So both of them, they will show an effort, right? No pain, no gain, right? So like the same way from the corporate world, they are showing an effort, and also not only the corporate world, the robbers, right? The thieves, right? They are showing their effort, right? But their effort is not a right effort. Their effort is considered as a wrong effort. Why? Because, I'm not talking about the corporate worlds, the thieves and the beggars, right? So, why? Because they are sowing the seed of a suffering. They are not sowing the seed of a happiness. So they become an object or subject of a compassion and kindness. But the people who are doing a practice, who are doing a meditation, from the earlier times, the corporate, what do? Is like they criticize to the vipassana and all these things. Why? Because vipassana and all these things, they talks about the contentment, right? But from the corporate, what this talk is more, like that. So the teaching is totally opposite. So now these days in Korea and Japan, what do they call is minimalism, right? If you have less, it will give you more happiness. It will become a source of a distraction. But from the other point of view, you don't have such things. Oh, what a stingy you are. You should have more. Huh? Oh, like that. So the happiness itself is different, right? So everyone is showing effort, right? So that's why the Buddha has made right effort, right? The Buddha hasn't mentioned like effort only, has put right effort. So over here, everyone is showing effort. So what we need to understand is, okay, so the right path, right? So with the right effort and also with the right path. So to have a right path, so to have a right effort, like first in the path, whether you are looking for the gross domestic happiness or the gross domestic product. So over here too, earlier Angulimala met a wrong teacher and he has shown the wrong path. And he kept on efforting, killing others to fulfill 1,000 garlands of fingers, right? And over here, the right side, the Milarepa, he was like advised by his mother to take a revenge, right? So both of them, in their early lives, what they did, they killed, and they developed regret, and they showed their effort in a other direction rather than in a wrong direction. They put in the right direction, they get into the right path, and both of them attain the arahat and the enlightenment. So over here, the right mindfulness. In the right mindfulness, is not forgetting aspects of the path which are objects on one's attention. It acts as an antidote for the forgetting. So over here, in the calm-abiding mind in the Bhava Chakra, in the Bhava Chakra, the mind has depicted as a monkey. In the calm-abiding mind, the mind is depicted as the elephant, right? So, but since people are more familiar with the Bhava Chakra, that's why what we call is monkey mind, like that, right? So over here, so in the calm-abiding mind, it teaches you how to show how to show a mindfulness. Over here too, we have a great practitioner called Se Guru Chowang. So he keep on forgetting, he keep on advising his mother to recite Om Mani Padme Hum, right? But the mother keeps on forgetting to recite the Om Mani Padme Hum. So what he did, he tied a little bell on her mother's door and told her, when you hear the sound of a bell, just think, oh, my son told me to recite Om Mani Padme Hum. Think Om Mani Padme Hum. It acts as a mindfulness. So you might have seen the prayer wheel, right? And His Holiness the Dalai Lama told one time, oh, prayer wheel is the portable prayer wheel. Why? Because if you fall asleep, you might hear yourself, bang, like that. So it's a good way of showing a mindfulness not to sleep. So different ways. So over here, and also His Holiness the Dalai Lama always asks the monks to keep this particular statue of right beside, next to your bed. No pain, no gain. So the Buddha attained enlightenment not by having parties, picnics, and all these things. So the Buddha attained enlightenment through the effort. So it's a kind of like a joke. So normally when I teach the meditation to the students, right, I used to sing a song. So now everyone is falling asleep, little bit asleep, I will sing a song. So during the meditation, I used to tell them, like, have you watched the movie Dil Wale Duniya Le Jayenge? I used to sing, Na jaane mere dil ko kya ho gaya, abhi tha yahan, tha abhi kho gaya. So sometimes, like, by thinking, right, it lets the students to think like, oh, my mind is right over here. Now it's gone like that. Now you should show a mindfulness. Oh, pull the bag. I'm in the meditation, not in the market, right? Like that. Now with the right concentration is remaining fixed one pointly upon these objects. Right. So without taking much time, from the very beginning, the birth till to the death, everyone's mind is concentrated. Everyone thinks that I can't do meditation. But the meditation over here is awareness, right? Alertness. From the very beginning of the birth, before the child has not opened his eyes, milk, 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 like that. Mind is concentrated. Always is concentrated. Even the gamblers, number 5, number 5, number 5, number 5, number 5, concentrated. The war, even at the war, I should shoot. Even at the time of death, I have to take 5 rupees from him. Even at the time of death, mind is concentrated. Right. So, but over here, what we need is the right concentration. Right. So over here, right concentration helps you to overcome the 2 obstacles from the liberation and from the enlightenment. Right. So then with the 3 higher trainings this morning, they talked about the sage do not wash away sins with water, neither do they remove sentient beings suffering with their hands, nor can they transfer their own realization to others. They liberate beings by revealing the truth of suchness. Be a lamp unto yourself. Thank you. And one more thing. When the Buddha said, you are master of yourself, and now these days lots of youngsters, they have the wrong interpretation of it. Oh, the Buddha said, you are master of yourself, I don't need any masters. I can learn from the YouTube and the Google. And I used to say, Google tutor sharanam gacchami, dhammam sharanam gacchami, sangam sharanam gacchami, like that. So the last time when the foreigner students, when they came over here, when we discussed, and I told them like, oh, I'm telling you from my own experiences, not by watching YouTube and Twitter and TikTok. Thank you.
Thank you very much for presenting a very humorous and at that same time scholarly paper and scholarly speech. And now Dr. Srikant Bahulkar has to respond. Yeah. So you have already stated that happiness is a state of mind. And according to Mahayana Buddhist tradition also, it's all depends upon the perspective. From one's perspective it is a sansar, another perspective it is a nirvana. So there is no difference between sansar and nirvana. So according to Buddhist tradition, even Jain Buddhism, we are all enlightened. We are all Buddha. It's a ideational problem. And they have presented me a book, that book about His Holiness Dalai Lama, and His Dalai Lama has stated how to see yourself as you really are. So this speaks of the most profound and sublime thought of Buddhism. You have to seek from yourself what you are. That is even Socrates has stated, know thyself. And one of the great recent, Rishi, he used to say, no, you know yourself. That is what I am. That is bigger. I have become 88 years old. but I do not know what I am. I have wrongly identified myself, which I am not. I am not LP Singh really. I am also enlightened. Brahman, sometimes called Buddha. But it's perspective. And here is the role of a guru also. You see, you have talked about that 12 verse. I don't say that 12 verse. 12 verse you take, they say that 12 years in judging who will be your guru, then you will become very, very late. The guru will come, don't worry. Guru will come at that time. One of my friend, and he was search of some guru. Then I'm telling about the real thing, real story. And he consulted one of the great astrologers at that time at Varanasi. He was an engineer. Said that you will get a guru after 30 years. And actually, when His Holiness came from Tibet, he became his guru after 30 years. And I know that person. Probably he is one of the most fortunate Indian who was directly initiated by His Holiness Dalai Lama. So it's a very mysterious. It's not easy to understand the mystery, because even some Sahaja has written that about the Western philosophy, our tradition is dualistic and doctrinaire. And the Indian tradition, that's Buddhism and all that, is monastic and mystical. So one of the greatest thinker of the last century, just second, Wittgenstein, he said there are some things which manifest themselves, and that is a mystical. And his Tractatus here last said, what could not be said, you must consign to silence. So it comes through silence. So I am really deeply impressed by your talk. You are a great monk, a great thinker, and great scholar. Now, Dr. Srikant Bahulkar will moderate and something.
Thank you very much, Geshala, for your very interesting lecture which you presented in a lighter vein. Otherwise, the whole session had become very serious at times. But I would like to bring you to the topic you have selected and ask a couple of questions. Already you have made your topic very clear with good presentation. But I think that I need some explanation. When you think of Sanskrit sources, we have a number of Buddhist texts which are in 4 prasthanas, 4 tenets, Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Yogachara and Madhyamika. And all of them speak of Eightfold Noble Path. And they also speak of Shikshatraya, 3 highest training, that is Shila, Samadhi and Prajna. Generally the order we know is Shila, Samadhi and Prajna. But when it comes to interpretation, it is Prajna, Shila and Samadhi. So what is the difference between that? Is there any difference? And secondly, when you go through Sanskrit sources, and of course there are Tibetan translations of the original text and commentaries, like you have referred to Madhyanta Vibhaga of Maitreya Natha and Vasubandhu's commentary Bhashya. And also there is a commentary of Sthiramati, that is Tika. And all these texts have been translated, interpreted in Tibetan. And also in addition to that, there are extensive Tibetan native commentaries which make the points clear. But as Geshe-la introduced me as a Sanskritist, so I have emphasis on the textual correctness of the text. And at the same time, I must confess that I am not a scholar of Buddhist philosophy. So I have been teaching Sanskrit and editing a number of Sanskrit texts, Vedic texts, classical Sanskrit texts, and for some time Sanskrit Buddhist text with their Tibetan translation in Sarnath. So I find that it's a problem of a proper editing and proper understanding. When the proper editing is not done, proper understanding is not possible. And mostly Mahayana Sanskrit texts, the manuscripts, are in a very bad condition. There are many errors, there are omissions, there are scribal errors, because those who copied them through the ages probably did not know the subject and the language. Also, Dr. Devkar is also fighting with the same thing. She has also edited a wonderful text and she also faced the same problem. When we come to Tibetan, we think that Tibetan translations are very pedantic and faithful. But unfortunately, I am sorry to say that even sometime in Tibetan translation, there are faults. So when you go through these texts, Tibetan translations of various texts, take for example, Eight Noble Paths, in various sources and Tibetan interpretation, do you find the textual differences in that? While going through Madhyanta Vibhaga Sanskrit text and Vasubandhu's Bhashya and Sthiramati's Tika and its Tibetan translation, a thesis on that, I find that even these texts have some difference and sometimes there are glaring differences or omissions. For example, the way in the beginning of Vasubandhu says, it says about Darshana Marga and then it's about Bhavana Marga. But the word Bhavana Marga is absent in Sanskrit. But you do find it in Tibetan translation. So my question is, have you come across any such textual differences in Tibetan, which are based on Sanskrit translations and Tibetan commentaries? This first question. And secondly, when you interpret a particular topic, for example, Eightfold Noble Path, as you have mentioned, there are 4 major sects in Tibetan tradition, Tibetan Buddhism. Do you find any sectarian or differences or interpretations and debate on that? Although the basic concepts are the same, common even to Theravada and Mahayana, I think then where is the question of debate? But even Tsongkhapa refutes some views of some others, and Tsongkhapa's views have also been refuted by others later on. So there is a debate, and debate is a good thing. You have Mahashastrartha, and in Sanskrit they say Vade Vade Jayate Tattva Bodha. When we enter into debate, we get to understand the real truth, the truth more correctly, we are closer to the truth. So just I would like to know from you, Geshe-la. Thank you very much.
Just
Thank you.
make a comment.
Okay.
You have talked about...
Sir, let him answer first. Yeah.
You have raised the problem, basic problem of language.
Okay.
You have said that some of the Tibetan translation is very pedantic,
Yeah.
right? I say that the concept of language cannot be defined. There is no common element present in one language to another language. It's a family resemblance. So you cannot expect that translation of Sanskrit in Hindi or Tibetan or any other will convey the same meaning, same ethos, not possible. So that a nearing to that it could be done, some very pedantic. So it is something very concept of language cannot be defined. This is a very big, it's a very problematic problems. So now you please.
Thank you very much for the question. And I don't know whether I'll be able to answer of your expectation. So as for let's say the first question, the Eightfold Path and the three higher trainings. So the Noble Fold Path. So since it's something to do with the Aryas, so one who has realized the emptiness. Yes, who has realized the emptiness and the end, the practices in the beginning, in the middle, in the end is considered as a very important. So as from my view of things, like three higher trainings, it might be for the beginners, let's say, not only for the beginners, for the middle, like the lower scope, middle scope, and the higher scope. Let's say for the lower scope, like right away, you can't go and tell them like, oh, you need to think about the emptiness and all these things. So over here, when we talk about the right view, we talk about thinking about the emptiness and all these things. Now, when I teach a meditation to the students, so when we talk about the morality and the concentration and the wisdom, when we talk about the morality, I don't tell them about, oh, think about the 10 non-virtues. Do you know anything about the Gandhiji's three monkey? Don't listen bad, don't listen evil things, don't speak evil things, don't say evil things. So it helps you to concentrate for the for the lower scope, for the beginners. It also helps for the beginners. So that's why I think that the discipline has kept in the higher trainings, it is kept in the beginning. And with the concentrations, when you have a discipline, the self-discipline, it helps you to concentrate your mind. So let's say if I'm a student, and if I bunk the class and accidentally a teacher caught me in the market, so while I'm back in the room, it looks like I'm studying, but my mind is like, oh, whether the master will come over here in my room or not, whether he will give a punishment or not, I won't have a concentration, right? When I don't have a concentration, when I don't have a focus, I won't be able to imply the wisdoms that I know, right? So that's why I think in the higher trainings, he set the morality as the first, and the concentration as the second, and the wisdom as a third, like that. Now, with the Tibetan interpretations, let's say in the translation, in the the end of the 7th century and the beginning of the 8th century, the king Trizong has invited the Shantarakshita from India. So the Shantarakshita, what he found was the Sanskrit has a drawback. Why? Because in India, it has become a kind of like scholar language. So it's only some scholars who knows about the teachings of Buddha, and the rest of the masses, they are totally ignorant about it. So what they talk is about only the Panchil, like that. Now, seeing the drawbacks, so the Shantarakshita came to realize that, oh, the Tibetans, they have got their own letters. And the Tibetans, we made the Tibetan letters by copying from the Devanagari. During the king Songtse Gampo, he sent one of his ministers to India to study about the Indian language. And when he came back, he invented the Tibetan letters by copying from the Devanagari. And after him, when the King Trizong came into power, he invited the Indian Buddhist masters from Nalanda, the Shantarakshita. And the Shantarakshita came to know that, oh, you have got your own language. So it's better to translate everything into Tibetan. So then the Tibetan scholars, they started learning Pali and the Sanskrit. And the Indian scholars, they started learning Tibetan with a collaboration They have translated lots of the Buddhist texts, but they have kept the Sanskrit, especially the mantras, as it is. So now, when our chairperson, the Professor L.P. Singh, when he read about my biodata, it's 16 years like that. So all these 16 years, like to get the highest doctorate degree, we have to study 21 years.
Good.
Like after 16, like 5 more years of examination of 16 years that you have studied. And all these 16 years, the studies, like it has divided into 5 major texts. And all these 5 major texts was translated. The root texts are written by the Indian great masters from the Nalanda masters. So from the very the letterhead, it says like in Indian language such and such, Pramanavati Karika, like that. Then Abhidhamma Kosha, like that. In Tibetan language such and such, like that. So let's say with the interpretations, even among the Vinaya too, let's say in the Pali, let's say it's written about when they talks about the negative, the substances. So in Tibet, like whichever the negative substance it is, you're not allowed to take it, like that. They have completely objected on it, right? But in the Thai, in some of the Pali, the Theravada nations, they smokes, right? Why? Because the Buddha haven't mentioned on the Vinaya. But in the Tibet, when we talk about the Vinaya, all the negative substances are not allowed to take it. So even the smokes, like that. So we have got their own different interpretations. And as for the reliable source, like for your, to be honest, I don't have much knowledge on the Sanskrit, right? And also when we were taught about in the Tibetan, and in some of the, let's say, like schools and universities, they were taught the Pali and also as well as the Sanskrit, and they try to cross-check, right? But as for me, like I don't get such opportunity. So maybe there might be some wrong interpretations, or let's say but from our perspective, what we think is, yeah, this is right, like that. Now, as for the Sagya Kagyu Nyingma Geluk, the tradition, the 4 sects, of course, that's why I've kept the Buddha in the middle, right? No matter whether it's Sagya Kagyu Nyingma Geluk, but the main aim and objective is to attain enlightenment. To attain enlightenment, one needs to realize the emptiness and one needs to develop the bodhicitta. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama has given an example like the analogy of a wind and the energy. No matter whether it's indigo, whether it's Air Asia, whether it's a Spice Jet, whether it's what else? Huh? Akash. Vistara. So air hostesses are different, pilots are different, the services are different, but without the help of wind and energy, no fly will be able to fly from Pune to New Delhi.
But sometimes landing is also different.
Yes, true.
There is some track
True.
landing as well.
True. But without the wind and energy, one won't be able to fly, right? Like the same way, there are some slight differences, right? It's a kind of like an apple seed. The one single apple seed, it grows thousands of apples. You can't say the apple which grows on the right, the blue one and the green one, it's not the seed of this apple. Why? Because it's a green, like that. It should be a red, like that. So like the same way, there are some slight differences. That's why that's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama always encourage us to practice non-sectarian, right? So as for the Institute of Buddhist Dialectic, after studying 12 years of the Yellowhead, the sect, then we have to go to the Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma's monastery to learn their texts. And we argue, but the aim is to attain enlightenment. Whether you go by road, whether you go by air, whether you go by sea, in the end, what we need to come over here in the glamour hall, right? So you can't say that, oh, your path is wrong. Why? Because you came by sea, like that. So like that, there's some slight differences, but the aim and objective is one.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Now it is open for question and answer. So if anybody would like to ask question, please raise your hand.
Please raise your hand if anybody has a question. We will take one or two questions.
It seems everyone has understood what we talked about. Let's go and have a cup of tea.
This is the history-related question. It's interesting that when I was studying the history of Lamaism, I had studied how some of the principles of the tradition are passed through the generations. Now, when I compare, not absolutely a comparison is not possible, but if I look at the farther history of Buddhism, in our tradition we see, in the Pali tradition we see a pupillary tradition called Bhanakas. Bhanakas were the people, the reciters. The reciter is the English translation of now the basic belief is that the Bhanakas were hailing from the time of the passing away of the Buddha, and they were the people who passed the tradition, the teachings, and the interpretations across across the history. So, when did this tradition, the pupillary tradition in the Sanskrit Buddhism or Lamaism started? Now, as far as we know, the Lamaism started in in somewhere in the 4th century or so in Tibet, as according to my knowledge. So, do we have such a pupillary tradition from that period?
Thank you.
Or that cannot be connected to a farther period of the history?
Oh yes, so as I've told you earlier, the Tibetan king, they are very selective. As for the wisdom is concerned, we have copied from India. And as for the food is concerned, we have copied from China. And it looks very strange. Why? Because when you ask your friend, oh, shall we, what do they ask? Like, oh, shall we go and have a Tibetan food? And it's like, what kind of food would you like to have? Like, it's like, momo. But in reality, momo is Chinese food. It's not a Tibetan food. But as for the Tibetan costume is concerned, we have copied from Mongolia. So all these 5 major texts, as I've told you, in the Indian language, Pramanavati Karika, in Indian language, Abhidhamma Kosha, in Tibetan language, such and such like that. So it clearly shows that it has come from India. It's not made by the Tibetans. So as I've told you earlier, what the Buddha said was, dear fellow Sanghas, don't follow me ignorantly, blindly, by saying that I'm a great teacher and the learned, like the goldsmith, melt the gold, tear the gold, analyze on the teachings. Like the same way, the Tibetan scholars, they have got their own way of different experiences when they practice. So that's why they have written different commentaries, right? But as for the root, let's say the root text is concerned, it's directly from India. And also, as I've told you earlier, it's not made by the Tibetans. It's made by the Indian Nalanda masters. So as for the Vasubandhus, the Abhidhamma Kosha, we are learning the root by heart, that the root text written by the Vasubandhu, not by the Tibetan Lama like that. But we refer some of the commentaries written by the Tibetan Lamas like that. So it clearly shows that what we are learning, it's not made by the Tibetans. It came from India, so it goes far. And as for the Vasubandhu, goes to the Asanga and all these things, the Nagarjuna and all these things. So it comes all the way back from the very beginning. It's not made by the Tibetans. So to call it is a Lamaism, it's a wrong thing. But as for the, let's say, the reincarnation might be started from Tibet. So what we believe is the Karmapa was the first reincarnated one. So, but as for the teachings, before the Karmapa came, they were all the teachings that you find in the Kagyu, it's far way back before he was born. So it's the same goes back to Indian culture. My pleasure.
Any other? Okay, finish.
Thank you, Professor L.P. Singh ji, for chairing the session, and our speakers for your enlightening and thought-provoking presentations and dialogues. Now, may I request our chairperson to kindly present souvenirs to the speakers. First of all, Venerable Geshe Tenzin Damchula. Professor Srikant Baulkarji. Thank you, Professor L.P. Singh ji. Thank you. Now we will recess for the 20 minutes tea break. Okay, so first photograph. Now we'll recess for 20 minutes tea break, and kindly